And we are live. Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Forever Sports. Friday morning. We are just over 24 hours away from the eagerly anticipated clash, Springboks versus France. And what a game it's going to be. I really think that we're in for an absolute cracker. You know, lots of people talking about the fact that if you hype up a game too much, sometimes it can underdeliver. That was definitely the case last weekend between Ireland and the All Blacks. But in fairness, I think that we're looking at two sides. Ireland are a side that I think we're always going to be pretty disjointed given the fact that they haven't played Six Nations. That is a genuine threat with this French side as well. The fact that they might not be able to kick into gear. However, I think there's so much riding on this game. I think this game is far more personal for the French than it is for Ireland, or than it was for Ireland. And I think it's far more personal from the box in terms of understanding what the French are trying to do by going out and almost, shutting us up, for example, or exacting revenge for what happened, back in the World Cup. But I do also think that there is so much more on the line tomorrow evening than last weekend, and that's up to France, for example. So a genuine home support, not, for example, an exhibition match overseas, which very rarely lives up to the billing, to be honest. If you look at a lot of invitational matches and the likes of that, lots of teams underperform. You look at the All Blacks last year for the game against Twickenham, for example, when the Boks put what was then a record defeat on the All Blacks. 2 years ago in the World Cup. The All Blacks didn't really pitch up. So I also think that exhibition games just genuinely don't have that kind of pull, for example, to really pitch up versus going to France, in the heart of France, in Paris, where you're going to get a very hostile environment, for example. It's going to feel like a proper test match. It's going to, feel like it's not a gimmick. It's not just this moneymaker on a weird sort of field in the middle of nowhere. It is at the French home ground. Although people are always talking about the fact that they would love to take these sort of games to the Velodrome down in Marseille and have a much more a bit more of a hostile environment. They reckon that the atmosphere would actually probably be a lot better. This is what some of the French journalists were saying, and some of the French players were saying that, you go down over there and you play at Marseille, for example, it's a completely different type of atmosphere. It's kind of almost like your sort of football, sort of almost hooligan type of thing, and it gets very, very intense versus in Paris. And I think that what would be quite cool is seeing them take more games to the rugby strongholds, really, in France, which is traditionally in sort of the south of France. When you think of your Bordeaux, for example, Toulouse, Toulon, the likes of those, the traditional rugby powerhouse these days, La Rochelle, for example, and the way they've come through. But the point is, we're playing at one of the most iconic venues out there. It is also the venue where we dumped France out the World Cup. It is the venue where they play all their rugby. So I do think that we are going to get a really good spectacle. I really do think that tomorrow is going to be a great game. And I really hope that the Boks do rock up. And I'd really like to see us go and put some pressure on them early and really threaten to go big, for example. I mean, it's for me, it's so many different players who are under pressure tomorrow. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how they respond. First of all, looking at this team, Bowen Venter. What an opportunity this is for him. It's his biggest test of his career so far. He's played 5 tests, kind of here, there, everywhere. And but he's a player who wasn't involved in the Boks before this year. He wasn't even really on the radar, I don't think. He'd never been to a lineman camp. He'd never been to those online ones, for example. And all of a sudden, he gets called into the Boks squad. And he makes his debut against Georgia, where he starts and gets 44 minutes. He then played against Australia ×2 off the bench, not a lot of minutes there. And then did get 30 minutes against New Zealand in that first test where we lost, and then played against Argentina where he started, and we won that game at home. So it's been a really interesting career for Bowen Venter, but this is his big opportunity, I feel, to really sort of stake a bit of a claim, because he's not starting against France, which is a big pack. There's a lot of talk about the scrum, for example. European sides genuinely are much better from a set piece dominance point of view. France in particular have been a very good scrummaging side for the last few years. So it's a big opportunity for him to really, really show what he can do. And I think that he's a player who I'm very much kind of under the microscope for tomorrow to see how he copes. But like what Zach Porthing was last weekend, who I think looked very good in scrums, made a couple of nice tackles, didn't get enough on the ball to really show his mettle. But so I think that Bowen Venter is a big player under the microscope tomorrow. Lut Jaga, I'm expecting a really big game from him. Lots of people saying that Ebretsebeth has dropped his performance, and that he shouldn't be even being picked with some of the comments being yesterday. So he apparently is under the microscope as well. In terms of the backline, Jason Creel's maybe been under a little bit of pressure. There's a lot of talk between him and Kane Moody, for example. Damien Willems, there'll be question marks over his fitness. And then the big question is, can Sasha do it on the biggest stages? Can he keep doing it on the biggest stages? Because he has been doing it in the last few months. But can he do it again? And can he keep producing this high level of performance? From the get-go? Can he put us over the line? Can he put us on the front foot early on in the game? Baseball earlier said no Pollard France by 20. That's a pretty wild statement. And Thierry van den Berg says, think we'll win or lose by a kicking game this week. Sasha and Willems should be up for it, I think. Line out and scrum the next big battle. Grobbies must have a good showing off the bench. Yeah, I think that's also... And then you look at the bench, big opportunity for Johan Grobelot to stake a claim. Marnus van der Merwe was brought in. I don't understand why he didn't get more opportunity. I think it was really frustrating. I think you look at the game time that Marnus van der Merwe was afforded, which wasn't much, and Johan Grobelot comes in and gets 2 games in a row, for example. He's the only hooker, so he's I can't really understand. Look, I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it, but I really think that the chance he's getting an opportunity now should have been afforded to Marnus van der Merwe, who came in, never really let us down, to be honest. I don't think he had a bad game for the Boks, so I don't know if it's just the case of the way he trained, for example. But you look at what Marnus van der Merwe had minutes wise. And you look at how Johan Grobelot is going to get probably 20 to 30 minutes almost every week. He'll probably start next week. And he's probably going to get more minutes, potentially, than Marnus van der Merwe has. Marnus van der Merwe got a total for the Boks of 100 minutes, across 4 games. Whereas Johan Grobelot has already gotten 36 minutes in his first game. So, yeah, I feel for Marnus. But it's a big opportunity for Johan Grobelot, because he can go and stake a claim. He can go and show everybody that he's the genuine number 2 hooker, for example. They have opted not to bring in Bongi Manami despite not having Jan Hendrik Wessels. So I think that Malcolm Marx and Jan Hendrik Wessels are pretty locked in, and now we're looking at that third option. We looked at Marnus van der Merwe, not much, I don't think. Now we're looking at Johan Grobelot. And what are the other options there? The Rugby commentary final has the Roots, says Stevie P, box by 11 or more. Keep shining in the market, Roots. Love it, Roots. Hope things are well your side. And it's gonna be a fun weekend. But yeah, so I think that Johan Grobelot's got a big opportunity off the bench. Obviously, a huge test for Andre Esterhuizen. I wouldn't say much to prove, but it's a big test for him because there is no Kwagga Smith, and we've opted to go with the big Andre Esterhuizen. So he now needs to try and see if he can fill the role. I don't think he's ever going to start ahead of Kwagga Smith on the bench, if he's available at this stage. But if he does a job tomorrow, then all of a sudden we sit there saying, well, it's not the end of the world if Kwagga Smith is injured, for example. We do have other options. And the likes of that. So, yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to sort of see how we deploy the bench as well, in terms of, do we go with the whole bomb squad on at a certain time, 50-odd minutes, and then you'll unload 6 players in Grobelot, Steenekamp, Wilco Louw, Snyman, Nortje, Esterhuizen, bang. There goes the entire forwards. And you're probably replacing everyone bar Pieter-Steph Vertooy and Jasper Wiese, would be my guess, in terms of ideally who you probably want to replace tomorrow. And then the Grant Williams, Manie Liebach off the bench. Can they bring that flair, that impact, that pace of play in the second half? Can they really take the game to France as the game rolls on, or is it going to be a case of it's the conditions might not suit, for example, or they might not have the ability to be able to turn it up when we need them to? I think they'll be okay, but I think that'll be a big not question mark, but a big observation, or a big focus point. That's probably the better word. Focus point of the game tomorrow will be how they come off the bench. Jess, so I've selected Kwagga ahead of Nortje. There's plenty of cover for lock. Need Kwagga's fetching ability late in the game. Yeah, so unfortunately he is injured, and that's why he's not available. Because he's got a slight niggle, and unfortunately isn't available. Sounds like he should be back from next week. And I'm sure we'll be involved against Ireland, hopefully. But I do agree, we are going to miss his fetching ability. And that's not a critique of Andre Esterhuizen. I mean, look, maybe Andre Esterhuizen has been spent the entire week with Kwagga Smith. He's about to become this phenomenal hybrid, like freak, where he's winning turnovers, running people over, the likes of that. But it's not just a case of the technique to be able to jackal. It's the understanding of when to do it, when not to do it, the awareness of the situation and the likes of that. DD says Estesen has been one of the best players this year. To be honest, he definitely has, 100%. He's probably playing the rugby of his life at the moment. And we keep throwing him in the deep end. Well, go play and go and cover flank, for example, and see what you can do. And so there's a lot to pick apart there. Chris says this game will show if Sasha FM has the greatness, he is going to be marked and showed suffocation. Interested to see how he adapts. What I'm really interested, what I'm excited about, is that he's going up against a world-class fly half. I was watching a video yesterday, and they basically said which team would Sasha Zulu start for, which wouldn't he start for, and they basically said he wouldn't start for France, he wouldn't start for Scotland, and 50-50 as to whether he'd start ahead of Ford for England. But the person actually said that they reckon he'd start ahead of Bowden Barrett right now, and Dave McKenzie for the All Blacks, and he'd start again ahead of them. So Romain Intermac is one of the best fly halves in the world. Now, can Sasha outshine him? Can he go up against Romain Intermac, take it in the stride, and say, "Come, I'm going to dust you," basically? That's what I'm excited to see. Is can he really go up against one of the top tens and go toe to toe with him? I think that's what really excites me about Sasha, is that he's such a competitor that he'll look at that and it'll be a really big challenge for him. I think he'll really relish it. He'll sit there saying this is a huge opportunity for him to show what he's about, and that for me I think it shows you the mentality he's got. He definitely has that kind of, I'm going to prove you wrong, for example. I'm going to show why I'm the best. And I'm really hoping that in that regard, that he puts in a big shift tomorrow and he tries to go toe to toe with the Intermac and he hopefully comes up tops. So Jay says, Russ said he has trained all week and it's not due to injury selective. Yeah, but the official release is he did have a niggle. So I think a lot of it was not to risk that. Tim Van Berg says, big pressure also on Marnie's ability to close out a game. Think he's up to it at general play, but if we trail by one with a penalty on the halfway, ... Yeah, so I think his goal kicking's been a lot better this year. I'd love to go and see what a season... in fact, I actually think I probably might be able to go and check what a season goal kicking has been for Marnie Liebach. It's been a lot better. I don't know if it's been a technique change, but a mentality change, for example, but he has kicked a lot better. Rassie even made the joke about he doesn't know if it's the rhino balls, for example, but something's clicked, and he is kicking a lot better. So his kicking, so his season success rate so far for conversions is 82%. I mean, that's if he operates at 82% moving forward, then fucking phenomenal. That's exactly what I want to see, because that's where he can. Then it's not even a factor. For example, he's not. It's not. It's a situation where you're going to say, well, you're not having to worry about his goal kicking. He'll never be a 100 Pollard, especially in terms of these big clutch moments. Pollard's had that sort of pedigree and he's had that experience. But if he can kick at 75% plus, I'm happy. And he has had big moments, sort of that whole idea, for example, he's got no BMT is nonsense. You don't lead a side to the URC, the debut season, without having BMT. You think of that, he nailed that conversion to the right-hand side up against the right touchline, the hardest conversion you could do after the 80th minute to win those games. He's had clutch moments. He's also had some poor moments, obviously, in the box side, but now we're starting to see maybe an evolution of him from a mental point of view to understand slightly better how to sort of play at the end of games. And obviously, you only get that sort of experience when you play more and more test rugby. He went into that World Cup in 2023 with next to no tests, by the way. We really don't talk about that enough. The fact that he went in there as the only number 10 under all the pressure. And there were some poor moments and he struggled with his goal kicking, but he also produced some absolute magic moments during that World Cup. I mean, he's a player who's only played now to date 27 times for the box, of which I reckon at least about 17 of those have come since the World Cup, maybe 15 of those since the World Cup. So we talk about, I mean, he made his debut and he played 6 games the leading into the World Cup, and then 4 games into that. So he went into the World Cup with fewer than 10 caps to his name, and produced some man of the match performance. You know, the no cock against Scotland, which was, they said, you know, that was our big game. You know, if we beat Scotland, for example, we could afford to lose against Ireland, and he turned it up. So we're definitely seeing a progression in Manie Libbok, and I really hope that now we're going to see a mature version of him, which is only going to kick on, because he's only 28 years old. This guy's got another 6 years in him. You know, he could have another 2 World Cups. He could be playing in 2031 and be 34 years old. So we really need him. We want him to kick on because he's got lots and lots of rugby left in him for the Boks. And the way he's playing at the moment, if you have that player for another 6 years, then that's a special player. Ray says yes, and said yes. And Rassie also said that a bunch of other players will get a go next week. Brent Cranford says, do you think Esterhuizen should have gotten the nod ahead of De Allende? Damien has been a little off the past few matches. I disagree with you there. I thought he was very good last weekend. But I understand. I can go with... I think Damien De Allende is always such a safe pick, isn't it? You know, he's not maybe got the flair that sometimes Andre Esterhuizen shows. Maybe he's not always as barbaric in the carry in terms of bursting through, but how often does he take 2 to 3 players with him, for example, get over the advantage line, especially in the short, you know, Andre Esterhuizen's a very good player. I think last week he showed that he's getting a lot better in close contact. But traditionally, Andre, for example, has often been the, you know, he runs into space at pace and he just bulldozes people. Damien De Allende's got probably one of the best abilities in close quarters without having to come from a run-up to get over the advantage line. And that's why I sort of always spoke about him having like an auxiliary loose forward, is that just in like those close quarters where ball pops up, for example, he just makes meters. So I think that they got the right decision, and I think you've got the option now. If Damien De Allende is not playing well, you can put Andre Esterhuizen in that 12 and you say, right, that's the work. If Damien De Allende is playing well, you then say, fantastic, Andre Esterhuizen goes onto the flank. So I love that that's an option. I mean, it's crazy to think that 6 months ago we wouldn't have even dreamt of this, and now we're discussing it as if it's going to actually happen. Because it is going to potentially happen. So Matthew says, we have fetches on the pitch. I believe this team is ready to play Tony Ball and Russ Ball as a blend. My thinking is this will be the first time the blend of dominance and flair will be mastered. Well, I hope so. Trendy Draco says, we trailed by 3 against Sweden when Manie came on and we won it. Yeah, I think that for me was a defining moment. And I spoke about the player ratings because I was waxing lyrical, and somebody said, oh, calm down. Like, you know, we would have won it anyway. And I said, yeah, but again, he came on, we were losing, and look what he did. And I think that game was a turning point for him. And you could see it happening where he looked and he thought, oh, there's a 50-50 pass there, but I'm going to hold on to it, or I'm going to kick over into the space. And you could see decision-making was so much better in that test. And I think that was a genuine turning point in his Bok career. And I think the Boks management noticed that, and they've gone, there it is. There is the Manie we've been waiting for. To not only have the ability to open up the game, but the awareness of when to do it. Racer 10 says, Manie kick success rate in 2024 was about 72%. I'll take that. Ken says, I think there was a social media hit on Manie during the 2023 World Cup. He is a far better player than he gets credit for. Top 10 in the world in his position. Yassine Baker says, Manie had 9 tests before starting as the only fly half in the line. The only fly half. That's insane pressure. It was insane pressure. Trendy Draco says, Manie Libbok was fly half against the greatest win against New Zealand. And Stefan Berg says, Damien's breakdown work is highly underrated among fans. Not flashy, but great for ball attention and pressure. 100%. I think so is Jesse Creels, actually. They operate very well together in that sense. And then Matthew's saying, Damien is Mr. Consistent. Andre is creating his own narrative of his own. We're just so lucky to have both of them, aren't we? To have those as your 2 options is quite wild. So, yeah, I'm just chuffed that we got them. And long may they continue to both play well and push each other. And it's going to be a very, very fun weekend of watching Damien De Allende do his business, seeing how Andre Esterhuizen goes about his business. And really, really can't wait to see which players stand up this weekend. And the players that don't, for example, necessarily maybe pitch up, they'll know they're under pressure because there's no player here who doesn't have competition. Maybe Malcolm Marx, because at the moment we're kind of in between hookers. But even Etzebeth, I mean, I think Jean Clay will play next weekend. And if he plays well, Arcus Neyman's played well in the number 4 jersey. He's got a bit of pressure that moving forward. Obviously, there's a lot of players that can potentially put pressure on them. But even then, 9-10, Kobus, Sasha's playing well, but Monty's playing well. Andre's around. Kobus playing well, but Grant Williams is on his day that one of the best, if not the best, scrum half in the world at times. And, even Kurt Lawrence, you'd never think that him and Cheslin Coley's position are ever up for debate. But then you've got Ethan Hooker playing phenomenal rugby at the moment. Damien Willemse, well, he's back and fit and looking good, but Apple Fassi had 2 great seasons. Jesse Creel's under pressure from Kane Moody. Damon Delenn is under pressure from Andre Esterhazen. And it's such a healthy place to be in as a squad that we've got so many options. I mean, we've got so many people who are really laying down the gauntlet every time they get the chance. Tim Vandenberg says, is Krappies in the squad? Think he'll get a chance next weekend? I do. He is. And I hope we'll see it next weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him partnering Andre Pollard against Italy. So he can get a run out. That would be my sort of guess. And I think that's going to be quite a cool. I mean, it seems to be normal, quite a usual partnership. Those two, Monica Vandenberg, very much. They sort of see him as the next Faf de Klerk. I'd love to see him get more opportunities in all sense. I think he's such a good player. I think we're not giving him enough chances to show that. I mean, you probably get a few more caps into him as well. But Kubus Ryan is just playing so well. And I think that's credit to Kubus, who responded. Because they brought in Morne van den Berg, and I think they said, listen, we've got our option. And then Kubus basically said, no. No, I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. And you're not going to just, move me along like that. And we need more of that, to be honest. We need more of those sort of players that we think are done, all of a sudden stepping up and saying, no, I'm still around, for example, and I can do the job. Albert van Lingen says, if the Boks have a weakness, it's the back 3 selection with no Moody and Hooker that are better under the high ball, so expect to see France kick a lot more testers. I think it will be a focus point for France to challenge, Kirtley and Cheslin under the high ball. I don't think they're bad players under the high ball, but obviously not quite the physicality that Moody has and Ethan Hooker has. So that's then their challenge, isn't it? Because Curly Irons will be very aware of the fact that that Ethan Hooker's been playing so well. And he'll be very aware of the fact that if he doesn't get things right, for example, and if he doesn't play well, then there's pressure. And there's a lot of pressure on him. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it. So we're going to wrap up there, people. Got a lot of stuff to get through. So it was a bit of a shorter show today. But thank you very much for jumping on. Tim Vandenberg says, in closing, saying, it's interesting and dynamic at scrum half because Kubus is playing probably the best rugby of his career, but he's also 35. Well, I think that's the big thing. I think he's reminding people that age is but a number. And if he keeps playing like this, you've got to keep backing him. But I agree. I think he is playing. It's the first time I've actually gone and said, Kubus is properly world class. I think he was very good in France, and I think he obviously had some fantastic games, but I just never really saw it translate to the Boks in the way it's translating at the moment. But yeah, please do smash a like on the way out. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. We'll see you tomorrow for the big watch along. Make sure you are got notifications on so that you come and join me and we have a fun evening tomorrow night. And I'll see you guys all then. Until then, keep safe, keep well.